happy that you're joining us. Today's objective is to create an activity that basically makes use of a circular cue. So we're going to be able to ask the students some questions. Questions that the student missed will be returned to the cue, and those they answer correctly will be removed from it. And this is a little different than, for example, a variable interval cue, which is a different queuing technique, a different strategy, where missed items are returned to the queue at variable intervals. So this is a lot simpler. It's just a simple set of questions that get repeated when a student answers them incorrectly. So we're going to start off with, this is LodeStar 9 first of all, so I'll go to help and about and I'll show you this is LodeStar 9 build 3. We're going to use the Activity Maker template. That's the Swiss Army knife of templates. Very versatile, and especially if you're new to LodeStar, this is the great way to start. So we'll just call this Clinic. That's the name of our project. And right now what LodeStar is doing is it's placing all the contents for this project in a folder called Clinic, which is under a folder called Projects, which is under LodeStar, which is by default put in your user directory. Of course, if that doesn't suit you, then you can certainly change that. So one can go up to the Tools menu and choose Options and change where the default location is for your projects. I'll demonstrate that in a second. So Tools, Options, and then you can see that this is on my C drive under my users directory under my username. Okay, to begin with, our activity starts with a default page, and this is a text page. You can change page types by simply clicking on this arrow and changing the page type. So text page is extremely versatile because you can use your HTML editor, but you also have the capability of adding widgets, which we'll cover in a different lesson, different tutorial. So this, our project will basically be, or our activity will be just a very, very simple writing clinic. And we're just testing the student's knowledge of, in this case, dangling modifiers. So we'll put in our 10-minute writing clinic title. And of course, if you started off with something like this, let's say we wanted to add some white space, we could always just reformat heading 1 and center it. Next, I'll add an image. I'll always use this little image icon. So rather than copying and pasting an image, I'll use this little image tool within the HTML editor. I have the option of pasting from the web or getting an image. And I'll go ahead and get an image. So right now it defaulted to my pictures. That was the last place where I grabbed an image. What I think I'll do is look for a folder called Clinic, which is here, and I'll use this image right here. It's asking me, do I want to optimize the image? Typically, yes. If you're using an animated GIF, say no. Whenever you don't want to resample or alter the image in any way, you would choose no. Otherwise, select yes. And we'll just, we'll add an alt tag. This is just a decorative image. Our fixed width is 320, height is 225, which is bad practice. We'll use a percentage instead. And what this will allow is the image will get larger and smaller based on the screen size, which we prefer. That makes it what we call responsive. We don't want this to be zoomable because it's just a decorative image. And then it's not a panoramic or photosphere, so we won't check off 360 degrees. We could, of course, add a border and do some other things, but we won't. Just bring in the image as is. I will title my page. So this is the title page, so I'll give it the page ID of title. I could optionally include it in the table of contents. I could make it a resource. So essentially a resource is, it turns into a button at the bottom of your activity. So a student could click on a resource at any time to bring up the content of that page. We could remove it from flow. So let's say, for example, we wanted this page to be a resource, which we don't. But if we did, we might not want the student to be able to navigate to that page by just clicking on the next button. So we could remove this from flow. In this case, we will hide the page scroll bar because it's just a title page. We don't need a scroll bar. Now we're one of one. Now we'll hit the plus button. So this adds a page. And notice the tooltip that comes up. It creates another page of the same type as the preceding page. And that's good for our purposes because what we want to do is add some instructions. So we'll go ahead and do that. Insert some instructions. So that's the title, and then here are the instructions themselves. We'll add those. I'll add an image. So I'll just click on just select right here, put my cursor right in front of the try, click on the image tool, get image. Notice it'll be back in the clinic folder. We'll choose this checklist ping. Again, we're okay with it, kind of getting resampled. And again, we want to make it a relative width, so 30%. This time, however, we'd like to align it to the left, just so that we can get our kind of text positioned to the side here. So our text is essentially wrapping around this image. We'll put in our page ID. Again, we're not going to be using table of contents for this activity. We're done. I can go ahead and save. You can save at any time. I'm a compulsive saver. My next page, so I'll hit add a page. My next page will be, I'll change the page type to gate. Now this will be a new concept for many. Essentially what gates do is support branching options. We really need branching options to affect what we're trying to accomplish. So we're trying to create this kind of circular queue of questions. And really, that's making use of LodeStar's branch options, which is a very, very powerful feature in LodeStar. There's many ways that you can cause branching to happen based on student performance and so forth. In this case, we'll use a gate, and the purpose of the gate will be to reset questions. So we'll reset. Now we're going to, what we want is, regardless of score, we want students to simply go to the next page. So how do we cause that to happen? Allow students to pass regardless of score. We're going to put in a score of 0 here. So essentially everybody will pass. Everybody will go down this path here. Notice the little icon, it looks like a little branch. You'll see this everywhere in LodeStar. When we click on the icon, we have some options. These are branching options. And in this case, we simply want to go to the next page. So we want to reset the questions, go to the next page. We're done. In this case, we don't need any fail branch options because everybody will go down this path. We'll call this gate the starting gate, and it basically will be the starting point of our questions. We'll add a page. And of course, we have another gate here, but we'll change the page type to a multiple choice. Now we'll put in our question stem. So which of the following sentences is correctly written? We'll put in a wrong answer. put in a right answer. We'll indicate the right answer with correct. Now we can have branch options. Notice the icon again, branch options at the option level. So if a student selected this option, it would cause these branch options here to go into effect. But we don't want that. In this case, we're not going to do option level branch options. We're going to do page level. So if the student got a correct answer, we're going to remove this question from the flow. We don't have to re-ask it. If the student got the incorrect answer, then we're going to, well, we'll do nothing in terms of action, but we will show feedback. So I'll just say this is a dangling modifier. I won't go into more detail, but you can imagine I could have as much detail as I want. And then I'll save. So normally for every incorrect answer, I ensure that there's feedback. I will give my page an ID. I'll call it Q1. A point value. So this question, if answered correctly, will earn the student 2 points. And then we'll randomize. So in other words, we're randomizing these distractors or options. Hit the plus sign, and then that'll give us the opportunity of putting in the next question. Again, which of the following sentences correctly written? We have a couple of choices here. Here's the wrong choice. Here's the correct choice. And we'll indicate the correct answer. Once again, you guessed it, we'll remove the correct answer from the flow. And we could go ahead and put in feedback, but we're not going to bother doing that. I think you get the idea. This is question 2, so we'll label it as such, give it 2 points, and randomize. And then for our final question, now you can imagine you could have as many questions as you wanted. We're going to keep this fairly simple, so we'll simply have 3 questions. And let's get one of the wrong answers in. Here's the correct answer. We'll indicate that. And you can anticipate what we're going to do now with the correct answer. And if you chose remove from flow, you're absolutely right. And again, we could have put in feedback here. Okay. We'll call this Q3. Give it a point value of 2. And we'll randomize. Now you'll notice the options here. We have seven possible options. If you want more, we can do that. We just wouldn't use this page type. We would use a question widget, which would give you unlimited number of options or distractors, answer options or distractors. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save. And then while I'm doing that, get ready for my next step, which is add a page. We don't need any more questions to illustrate this, so we're going to choose a gate. This will be our ending gate. And this will essentially constitute the circle. This will be, this is the thing that's going to be responsible for moving students on if they got, let's just say 66% or better, or returning them to the starting gate if they achieved less than 66%. So how do we accomplish that? Well, we put in 66 and we set percentage rather than 66 points. And then we could fill in the pass and the fail. But before that, I'll just I'm going to title this ending gate. This is arbitrary. This just helps me. This has no meaning programmatically. I mean, this is not a bit of code. It's just simply a label. So before we define what our pass and fail options are, let's create one more page. We'll change the page type here to a report page. This is the page that's going to be responsible for reporting the score to the learning management system. So if you're using Moodle or Blackboard or Brightspace, Canvas, this is when information gets transmitted to that learning management system. We're going to call this page report. We could customize a message here. That's what this is for. But we don't have to. This thing will work perfectly fine if we just leave it blank. Okay, so now we have the opportunity. We'll go back to our ending gate and we can now select our branching options. So we're going to jump to page. If they succeeded, if they got 66% or more, we're going to go to the report. If they failed, did not achieve 66%, we're going to jump to the starting gate. And this time we're going to tell them what's going on. Did not achieve 66%. You know, this is arbitrary. You can say whatever. You're just informing the student what's going on. So we're going to return the student to the missed items. And this is a fairly short message, so I might be safe and just branching after 3 seconds. In other words, displaying this message for 3 seconds and then jumping to the starting gate. If you don't like that, you could branch when the next button is clicked. So if you anticipate students will have difficulty reading this message within 3 seconds, then you can put the control in their hands. We're going to save. Now, if I were to review this, if I were just to look at what we've done, I have a different view here, and it's the branches view. So we were in the pages view, which kind of gives us this linear view of all the pages and the page types. But we can choose branches here, and you can see what's happening here. We have our title page instructions. Notice we clearly labeled everything. In our starting gate, we simply jumped to the next page. If Q1 is removed from the flow, it ends up going to Q2 because the instruction here is next page. And then we hit our end gate. If we succeeded, then we're going to go to the report. If we failed, we're going to go back to the starting gate. We can also use this to jump to, like for example, we could jump to the starting gate or ending gate. Okay, now I'm ready to, I'll put this away, I'm ready to preview. So we'll click on preview the browser. Now, I want to explain what's happening here. First of all, what LodeStar is doing is acting now as a server. So it's serving up this activity to your default browser. So whatever your default browser is, that's what LodeStar will bring up. And then it'll serve the activity to that browser. So it's almost as if you're in a learning management system. It behaves very, very similarly, with maybe the exception of capturing. There's no place, there's no grade book, obviously. In this scenario, we don't have a learning management system. So there's nothing to kind of capture your grades or the student performance. So here we are, here's our default browser, and it's loading the page as if we were on the internet. And then, we didn't do anything to alter the appearance of this. So here's our little progress indicator, and it's telling us how we're doing. And then, here's our 10-minute clinic. We have some buttons up here. We'll talk about those in a second. We've got our navigation. We can go ahead Here's our clinic instructions. So again, this is kind of out of the box, very minimalistic. And then now when we hit the next, we'll pass through that gate, and that gate will cause us to go to the first question. So the student never sees the gate. They see the first question in this case. So we have 3 questions. I'll answer the first 2 incorrectly. I'll answer the last one correctly. So upon entering the room, a skeleton caught my eye. Well, the skeleton's not doing the entering. And there's our feedback. This is a dangling modifier. And we'll move on to the second question. Having followed a strict diet, well, this is wrong. So this one will answer correctly. Now that will be now removed from this circular queue. You didn't achieve 66%, so then it circled you back to that gate, which caused us to go to the next page. So this time we'll answer everything correctly. That first gate, the starting gate, reset those questions. So now I'm able to interact with them again. Otherwise, they were locked. So which of the following sentences is correctly written? It's this one. And notice once we submit, they are locked. Okay, now that third question is removed from the queue. So we'll pass by that. We'll hit that gate. And the gate will say, well, you've scored. In this case, you've scored 100% now. And so 6 out of 6, 100%. And then it's attempting to communicate to the learning management system. So it requested a confirmation, received a confirmation, and warns us that we're not really connected to a learning management system. If students were, if this happened after a student was connected to a learning management system, let's say they were doing this activity from Moodle, and they got this message, it probably meant that they got disconnected from the internet. Now, okay, so that's good. I noticed there was something that I had done incorrectly. And so I'm going to go to the last page. So I'll go to page 8. We'll open up pages and go to this last page. It's probably a good idea to terminate after report. We've noticed in a couple of learning management systems that if you don't do this, then the report doesn't get translated into grades, doesn't communicate with the grade book. So to prevent that, once we've done the reporting, we're essentially terminating our communication to the learning management system, which then triggers this transfer of information to the gradebook. So I would recommend that, and that will make this fairly fail-safe. Okay. Now, what I would like to do is just alter the appearance in some small way. So we'll go to Tools. We can alter the appearance through layouts and themes and palettes. We'll choose themes. Let's just, we could go ahead and, for example, we could change our background color. And if we previewed now, we would see this particular color in the background. But I also want to add a background image. So we'll do that. I'll go to my pictures folder and look for something that might be suitable. So I'll choose this cogs. This is going to give me some pattern in the background. Now this pattern will lay over top of our color. I'd like to, I didn't do this in this case, but what I do like to do is make this transparent, or change the opacity so that the color bleeds through a little bit. I didn't do that in this case. I hit OK. So we were in the layout manager there. So I changed the HTML background color in the themes manager and changed the background image in the layout manager. Very, very subtle, simple change, but let's go ahead and preview and see what happened. So as this activity gets loaded up, you'll see that there's our background color. And then of course, it's now replaced by our background image. And again, if we made this image transparent, then our background color would just kind of bleed through. So that makes for a nice effect. And there we go. And of course, we can modify many things. One thing that I want to point out, and maybe I'll conclude with this. So as the students answer, so here's an incorrect answer, and then I'll incorrectly, or let's say I'll correctly answer this one. So I've answered 2 questions so far. Now I'll go up to this little transcript. So a student always has access to a transcript. In this case, student can read the question, their response, what the correct response was, and what the feedback. So essentially they can start using this as a study guide. Now we have this simple kind of circular cue. We show questions, we repeat questions that are missed, but you could do anything. You could, based on a failing score, you could direct a student to a resource so they could review the questions they got incorrectly and then consult the resource for additional information to help them out before they retook the questions. So to kind of summarize, we were able to add text, add imagery. We were able to create this kind of circular cue with the use of branching options. And one way to control branching options or to define them is through the use of these gates. There are many ways to do this, but the gates is one way. And then of course we have questions, and we had branching options within the questions. And so we could change branching options based on an option level, or we could do this based on a page level. We could even do it based on just displaying the page. We could cause things to happen. Then we hit this gate, and the purpose of this gate was to branch forward if we met or exceeded 66%, and then circle us back to the starting gate if we did not achieve 66%. Once we've answered all the questions correctly, or more than 66, more than 2/3 of them, then we displayed a report which sent information to the learning management system. Our final action would be to click on export so that we can create a package that is importable in Moodle, Blackboard, and so forth. So SCORM 1.3 is the recommended standard. And then you would just type in a module name, and then a topic name, and then the author. Once you clicked on Create Export, a little dialog pops up and tells you that you've successfully exported the project. And then you can go to your favorite learning management system and import this activity. So thank you so much. Until next time.